Hi everyone, here's what's bothering me tonight. I hate that the American election has come to this. What's supposed to be a free and fair experience with democracy has come down to a narcissistic old man peddling misinformation and saying, oh, these ballots shouldn't be counted, and doing everything he can to stay in power. And then in the other corner, we have a creepy old man who can barely remember his own name. And these are the best choices. Democracy is what got to this. Out of a nation of nearly 330 million people, these two were the best you could come up with. And the election is now so tense and wild that you have people trying to run campaign buses and their volunteers and supporters off roads, blocking roads, voter intimidation, voter suppression, and there's a palpable tension in the air. And this is supposed to be just, yeah, well, that's how things happen sometimes. That's how things happen sometimes in the nations America invades, not in America itself. The fact that it has gotten to this point is beyond mind-boggling to me. And I find it so incredible that there are still millions of Americans who take no issue with this and think that this is fine so long as their guy wins, right? So long as Trump wins, who cares if we descend into a fascist hellhole? Hell, some of them even want that. But it's just really hitting me that this is election night. And it's come to this farce. This is what has to exist in America in 2020. Two terrible options fighting over the increasingly desiccated carcass of America. While millions suffer and thousands die from COVID. And the polls are just... This is not normal, nor should this be seen as normal. And yet this is what everyone expects because Trump is that destructive. He has caused so much harm and done so many terrible things that what initially started in 2016 as shock and outrage has now become the status quo. It has become normalized. And that shouldn't be the case in what's supposed to be a fair and open democracy. I can't put it any simpler than this is not normal, and it shouldn't be normal. And yet we've gotten to this point, which then begs the question, how and why? How did America, supposedly free democratic America, how did it come to this point? How did we get here as a broad society in the West? Because we see similar problems happening in Britain, Ukraine, Germany, France, Canada. How did we get here? Now, for me, the immediate answer is capitalism. But in terms of how did America specifically get here, it's capitalism and how it influences media. And the fact that the media decided to go along with Trump and cover what he said 24/7 because it was a rating sensation, and ratings are what get you views and therefore money because capitalism, that just gave Trump all the attention he could ever want or desire. And it pushed important news to the wayside. And so now Americans are trying to choose between which terrible old man they want to go for. when they could have primaried Trump, when they could have had Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee, when they could have spent previous years, even before Trump, actually thinking progressively and in a long-term way. But they didn't, because they just assumed that things would be fine and that everything would return to normal. And people are voting for Biden thinking that there's any normal after this, but there isn't. This is the new normal unless you change the systems in place, and yet you destroyed the chances of the one candidate who promised to do that and had a plan for doing that. And so here we are at the end of 4 years with the world watching with bated breath and watching on in horror, waiting in anticipation at what happens in the next 24 hours. But no matter what happens in the next 24 hours, this doesn't get better. It gets worse. And that is what's bothering me today.